This is Candra Savage. She practices holistic and integrative psychotherapy and psychoanalysis. She has a master's degree from Rutgers University. You've done some of my online sessions, like in Between Lives Regression. And we even had sessions together for past life regression.
Yeah.
So that's a way in which you've experienced it. So can you tell us a bit about your experience with your own past lives or past life regression therapy?
Yeah. After I did a lot of extensive work on my present trauma in this life, there were still a couple of issues that would resurface and patterns that it just felt wouldn't resolve in the way that they had with my present life trauma work. And when I began to explore past lives online, I was really amazed how similarly it reminded me of meditation. So the state was very similar, but the information coming up from my subconscious was really available, vivid, interesting, making sense to me in many ways, and just available. So it was like meeting another part of myself. And I had met many parts of myself up to that time. So this just felt like, oh, this is a familiar feeling. I know what this feels like. And yet it's like a whole nother part of myself. And so when I started doing work with you, there were some very specific things that I wanted to seek resolution for. And the way in which you operate reminded me so much of my present trauma healing. So it almost felt like a very similar way. And just, going into a deeper place. And the resolutions were so impactful and meaningful in a similar way to my present trauma healing was. It didn't actually feel so different. It's just the information was coming from a very new part of me, or a part that I had been just recently beginning to develop, which is that spiritual and deep intellectual wisdom within the brain and body.
Yeah, interesting. I'm glad you felt that way, even as you're describing EMDR. So many of the principles and ideas, it's something I've not trained in. I know a little bit about EFT, but so not that much. But yeah, everything that you're saying about recalling it, reprocessing it, bringing in resources, that's all things that we do in past life regression. And then there's extra levels of narrative. What was it like for you to recall, the people I know in this life, and then I can recall them incarnated in a different body, in a different role in a past life, and to make those connections so that it's not something you do just to know, like, who was I? But it really does connect to presenting issues that are relevant to the way that we're feeling and operating in the world. What was it like for you to get those narratives, even the suspension of disbelief, or did you take it literally or not, or how was your experience with that kind of narrative?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost magical. I've heard EMDR described that way also, like it's magic.
Yeah.
Because when you get that subconscious download of information, it's just like, where the heck is this coming from? It's coming from me. So that's one thing that drew me to EMDR. One thing that drew me to hypnotherapy, past life regression, is that all the deep wisdom is coming from within. And so that was really amazing. And then it also makes me think of the word complexity and perspective, because when you can see how you've behaved in ways that may make you very upset and frustrated, and also ways that you think, wow, I really endured that, you're having to take in from that observer position all of that new information of experience beyond just this life. And it's so vast, and yet it's so specific. And there's something your subconscious wants you to understand about those moments and events that have given you, again, those underlying subconscious interpretations that may or may not be working for you anymore. And so it wants you, just like the way we would update our iPhone, to a new version. Our subconscious at some point says, it's time for you to update. And it wants you, I feel like it's drawing you in to give you that new information, that new interpretation. It's expanding the complexity again.
Yeah.
Okay, now we have the technology to expand what we can understand. And it's almost like a gift.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that really comes back to what we're talking about before. I think people really suffer when they judge other people as being wrong and bad and themselves as good. But the real issue is the certainty with which they feel that they can judge them. and how certain they are that they're wrong. And this expanding narrative is so useful because what we often find is that things even out over time. And it may be in this life someone is objectively bad and wrong, and we can judge them as so. And so you can understand people can be justified and cling to that identity and feel justified in really judging someone harshly. And the people who have done wrong do they'll karmically they think they will be punished even if they're not punished by the judicial system. So I rest in peace knowing that that'll happen with or without my vitriol, and strong feelings. And that the huge thing comes there when you go into past lives, you find out the other sides of the story, and you find out an overwhelming amount of story and narrative. They're definitely wrong in this life, but I balance it out by I did some wrong in another life, and so many shades of bad, good in the middle, and that complexity, and all that does is make you challenge the idea that you really know what is right or wrong in the big picture.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I might actually say all healing is being able to acknowledge that you don't fully understand,
Yeah.
and you never will, or you're never going to be certain about something, right? Like we're not, to me, and this is my own personal view about what life is all about. If we're looking at life itself, which is that we're just doing a little better each time. We're just learning and adapting to the new environment each time. And maybe even doing better the next time isn't the right way to interpret it, right? But we're just adapting,
Yeah.
and that we're just on an evolutionary path. And evolution means there's never really fully an arrival.
Yeah.
We're just going to continue to shift and change the best we can with what we know. And that's it.
Thanks for watching. If you're interested in having personal sessions or certification training in hypnosis or hypnotherapy, or regression to this life, past lives, between lives, or spirit releasement therapy, then visit my website, thepastlifeawakeninginstitute.com, for details.